Matt Cartright went off on Michigan Republican Governor Rick Snyder, who is apparently largely responsible for the poisoning of thousands of children, not to mention adults, but it's particularly problematic with children because their brains are still developing, and lead poisoning inhibits the development of new brain cells, basically. So anyhow, here this is a clip from this morning's hearings. Here it is.
And I've had about enough of your false contrition and your phony apologies. Susan Hedman from the EPA bears not 1/10 of the responsibility of the state of Michigan and your administration, and she resigned, and there you are, dripping with guilt, withdrawing your paycheck, hiring lawyers at the expense of the people, and doing your dead-level best to spread accountability to others and not being accountable. It's not appropriate. Pretty soon, we will have men who strike their wives saying, "I'm sorry, dear, but there were failures at all levels." People who put dollars over the fundamental safety of the people do not belong in government. And you need to resign too, Governor Snyder. I yield back.
I would go beyond that. I would say he doesn't just need to resign; he needs to be prosecuted. This is why we have a criminal justice system, and there's this whole thing called the public trust, right? Maybe it's a quaint idea. I don't think so. I think it's a very real idea. It's a very important idea, and the public trust is the whole point of government. Now, I realize Republicans don't believe that. Republicans, modern day Republicans, and it's tragic, but it's true. Modern day Republicans have been drinking the Kool-Aid, the von Mises Kool-Aid, the Milton Friedman Kool-Aid, the Koch brothers Kool-Aid, the Libertarian Kool-Aid, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we can take it all the way back to the. Well, in fact, in my book Screwed, I did take it back to the 15th century. To, the life is nasty, short, and brutish. The Thomas Hobbes Kool-Aid, if you want. But conservatives have always held this idea. I mean, literally always, since the founding of our republic. John Adams was the greatest example, arresting, newspaper editors for, putting Ben Franklin's grandson, Benjamin Franklin Bach, in prison because he wrote an editorial in the Aurora, the Massachusetts Aurora, that said, or the Pennsylvania, wherever the Aurora was published, saying that John Adams was old, toothless, querulous, and balding. That got him a 2-year prison sentence under the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798. And in fact, John Adams had his newspaper shut down and had him arrested even before he signed the law. I mean, conservatives, John Adams was our first conservative president, followed by our first arguably liberal president, Thomas Jefferson. Clearly, issues back then were different than issues today are, but nonetheless, this has been going on for a long, long time. These guys fundamentally don't believe that government can serve the public good, that only the aristocrats can serve the public good. This is why John Adams had it set up so that, actually it was Abigail who pushed for this, but that whenever his carriage with him and Abigail in it went through a town, the local militia had to come out and fire a 21-gun salute and say, "All hail," or "God save President John Adams." And in fact, back in 1799, in the spring of 1799, in the third year of the John Adams presidency, or I guess that would be the fourth year of his presidency. No, it was the third year of his presidency. There was a fellow by the name of Luther. Oh, what was Luther's last name? I want to say Luther Burbank, but that was the famous botanist But anyhow, his first or last name was Luther, and he was the town drunk in Trenton, New Jersey. And he was sitting in a bar that was run, the bartender was the guy who owned the bar, and the bartender was a Federalist, a conservative, and a John Adams loyalist. And John Adams and Abigail were coming through town, and I tell this story in my book, We the People, by the way, in our illustrated book. And John Adams is coming through town, and the militia come out with their cannons and their guns, and they fire the 21-gun salute, and they shout, "God save President Adams." And Luther, sitting on his bar stool in this bar, says, "They're firing the cannons. Well, I don't care if they fire one at his arse." And for that, the bartender reported Mr. Luther, or Luther, whatever his last name was. I'd have to go back and read my own article. It's been so many years. And they reported him, and John Adams had him arrested. This guy went to jail. You had the congressman from Vermont, whose name will come to me when I'm not trying to think of it. You had the congressman from Vermont, who Matthew Lyon was his name, who stood up in the House of Representatives and took on the congressman from Connecticut, whose name was Griswold, and said to him, "You, sir, who was a Federalist." The congressman from Vermont was an anti-Federalist. He was a Democratic Republican. And he said words to the effect of, "You, sir, are only interested in protecting the interests of the rich and powerful, not the average working person," which, by the way, was true, because the Federalists and then the Whigs and then the Democrats and then the Republicans, today it's the Republicans, don't believe that we, the people, can or should have any say in anything, because you can't trust the rabble. The rabble was what John Adams, that was the word that John Adams used to refer to us. And when when Matthew Lyon, the congressman from Vermont, said that to Mr. Griswold on the floor of the House of Representatives, now this was, in the winter, and there was a fire burning in the fireplace in the House of Representatives and in the main chamber. And Griswold grabs a fire poker and comes after Matthew Lyon. They had a fight on the floor of the House over this. And Matthew Lyon got arrested. John Adams ordered him arrested, and he went to prison for 2 years in Vergennes, Vermont, in an unheated jail cell, where in the election of 1800 he ran for re-election and won. So, I mean, it's not like this is a new thing. But this ideology has now been so thoroughly disproven. Franklin Roosevelt brought this country back from the brink. Teddy Roosevelt brought this country back from the brink. And he was a Republican, but he was a progressive. The progressive ideas, the progressive ideals that, in a large part on which this country was founded, clearly a lot of mistakes were made, and a lot of people were left out. But it was a beginning. Those have always brought us back. And frankly, I think that they're bringing us back again. And here now you see Rick Snyder, the governor of Michigan, trying to weasel out of his responsibility. And frankly, I'm waiting for the emails to come out, because I am convinced that this wasn't just his little dictator manager in Flint. It wasn't just his decision to save $1 million by buying water or bringing water out of the Flint River rather than buying it from Detroit out of Lake Huron, which is clean water. Because it turns out, we now know that the city of Detroit said, "Oh, we'll sell you water at, we'll give you $1 million discount." So it wasn't to save money. So what the hell was it for? And I doubt, frankly, that this is going to come out in the hearings today, although it'll be really interesting. I mean, they're going on now, or they were going on earlier, so I haven't had a chance to read the transcripts. But I am personally of the opinion, this is just my own personal conspiracy theory, although I've seen enough stuff online to corroborate this, that I think that it's going to come out, that really what Rick Snyder's agenda was to privatize the water supplies of both Detroit and Flint, so that his corporate buddies could get rich off these natural monopolies. Water supplies are natural monopolies. You can't say no. You can't say, "I think I'll take another provider." You can't say, "If you live in the city, I think I'll bring in some drilling equipment and put a well in my front yard." You can't do it. You've got to take the water. And in Flint, they're paying the highest price for water of anywhere in the United States. And it was poisoned by Rick Snyder.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.